Welcome to Juxtaposition, aka the Extraordinary Nobodies, aka your favorite guys. It's your boy. It's your boy.
Boy,
Um, yeah, we're here to amplify the voice of the modern black man. Checking my boys out, see how y'all doing. Cleveland, how you feeling?
what's going on, man? I feel good. I feel good. It's been an intense week, but it's been a good week. I feel good,
You
man.
came up with the WDAS voice.
What's that? What's that show used to be called with the late
Quiet Storm.
Quiet Storm?
KV was good. Kev, you can hear me?
Yeah, it just says my internet is slightly unstable, so I can hear you guys now. What up? What up? It's me, your boy from Jersey.
It's
We
your
out
boy
here,
KV.
boy. So KV, man, I'm out here having a good time with my fam, so it's good to be out here hanging out.
Are you in Jersey?
Homemade, native Jersey. I say that though. I did say that. I'm in Maryland, but Jersey's always in my heart, and
Yeah.
I bring that wherever I go.
James was good. How you feeling?
Good, man. Just trying to relax. Been out off work now for like a week and a half before I actually start back up the new position on Monday. So I'm just trying to relax, but this quarantine is killing me. Not being able to get a haircut when I want to, but we'll make it work.
All I hear is privilege. That's all I hear.
Man, right?
I've been out
That
of
is
work.
real.
You know what I mean? Car ain't got
They're
no
good.
car ain't got no gas, but I'm making it.
Trying,
Yeah.
doing my best.
All right, we're gonna transition into the best thing that we've seen this week. I'm gonna be selfish and I'm gonna take the ball and I'm gonna go first because the best thing that I've seen this week was me. Yes, that's it. But no, on some real shit. I got a chance to interview um, the leader of diversity and inclusion in my company today in front of all of our interns, about 75 interns. But she's an executive. She's a big deal. There was so many pivots and changes. But I'm super happy that I got a chance to be a part of that. The interview was flawless. Got good feedback, and yeah, man, I'm riding pretty high on that, especially with all that's going on right now. You kind of look for these small victories. So that happened today, and that was pretty dope.
Dope.
Lovely, man. That's dope.
Yeah, yeah.
Nah, that's what's up, though. I mean, to be able to interview somebody like that in that type of position in this atmosphere, especially when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And I know those interns are definitely diverse. So
Right.
giving different perspectives and, maybe people don't know something, give them those new ideas and new mindsets to be able to think forward and think positively. For me, I mean, a little bit different. I was able to see my sister get engaged yesterday,
Hey,
actually.
shout
So
out.
shout out to her. That was cool.
Absolutely. For me, man, I'm gonna take a page from Var's book, man, and shout myself out a little bit, man.
Hey, my guy.
I got a chance. I had an opportunity to speak with the CFO and the VP of Diversity and Inclusion about the state of the culture, basically.
Oh,
And I'll
okay.
be presenting on Friday with the entire company, giving my viewpoint on the state of the culture and
Hey.
systemic racism specifically, man. So I'm excited about it.
Whoa.
I warned him. I said, listen, I can only talk one way about this topic. I can't talk any other way. So what you want me to do is I'm gonna do it. But I'm going to be honest, and they were with it, man. So I'm happy about that, man. So that's the best thing.
Congratulations, bro. That's big
That's
time.
what's
That's
up.
big time.
That is, man. Tell them no
How did that-
censor. No censor.
Facts.
No
How
sense.
did that happen?
Yo, so we have a diversity and inclusion group for people of African descent, and
The niggas.
Negroes got a diversity and inclusion group, man. But like ever since everything happened, we've been having meetings like every other day, and they called me to the meeting, and they asked for me to weigh in and give my insight. They specifically asked for me to weigh in and give my insight. And before I even said anything, I said, listen, this is something I hold near and dear to my heart. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be open. I'm not going to be profane, but I'm going to be real. And they said that's what they wanted. And I just spoke my heart, man. And it moved a couple people. So from there, I had another side conversation with just like a subgroup of those same individuals, and the CFO was on that call. Also, the VP of Diversity and Inclusion. She's usually on every diversity and inclusion group call. And they said we're going to have a company-wide like forum, and would you be open to presenting? And I was like, absolutely. Like I'd rather people hear it from me than try to put it together on their own from like social media or whatever they're reading in the news. You know what I mean?
So the CFO and the head of D&I is the same person?
Two different people, yeah.
Okay, good. About to say, come on, man.
That's fire, man.
Our head of D&I, this woman is amazing. She is like for the cause, for real, like legit, just a great individual. But our sponsor is the CFO. The sponsor of our group is the CFO. So he
got it.
That's how I have it.
Big time. Good stuff,
man, that's dope, bro.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Over to you, KV. Bring us home. What's the best thing you've seen this week, bro?
Man, listen, I'm gonna have to take a scoop out of Vars ice cream and a slap out of Cleveland. Keep this way. I'm gonna keep this way.
I'm in a long boat this week, huh? I gotta do some self promotion next week.
Right. Carmelo said, "I like to thank me." This is what? All right.
Well, but I got a chance to get a text yesterday. I'm gonna read it to you guys. It says, "Kevin, thank you so much for speaking up. Gave me goosebumps. I could not remember the list of the readings fast enough that you shared. Could you please share that if you get an opportunity to? Highly appreciate it." And what she was thanking me was for speaking up in class the other day in regarding to systemic racism, and don't remember everything word for word, but the feeling that I was hoping to achieve was empowering us in public and forcing people to look at racism as a disease from a public health practitioning perspective. And, I asked people to do research and provided some resources. And I got questioned by one of us for in purpose of what's the reason of my sharing this. But I think she was more so asking for someone else. Gave us an opportunity to express the real reason to empower you and us and people that look like us, so we can understand where we come from and who our ancestors are. And in order to make change, we have to have that self-empowerment first. We can't look for no one else to give that to us. And I just wanted to kind of harness on that. So I shared some of the resources and these are all things that people could YouTube. So I kind of wanted to make it kind of more accessible. White woman interview on race relationship. Trevor Noah discussed 2020 protests, the case of reparation by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And I told them if they had time, the Act of 1871. But then I went in and I said, I was going to make a suggestion about hidden colors. And I told them, this might be too. I told him. The show, I don't know. I had to get the disclaimer. That might be too deep for y'all. But
hidden colors had me questioning my own blackness. Like, am I black?
Yo, I hit him with the.
I need to be enlightened about hidden colors. That's new to me. What's this?
Hidden colors is like the 2010 version of Eye on the Prize. It's like that should come at your throat. And it makes no bones about whose problem it was. Blame Whitey.
For sure. I told him. I gave him the heads up. I said, listen, this might be too deep for y'all. I said it just like that. I said, yo, this might be too deep for y'all, but hidden colors. And I dropped it. It's two simple words. Y'all can go figure that out. But understand it is going to be deep. So. And I kind of got a chance to speak that, man. I felt like that was necessary. I felt like it's only but 3 of us that look like me. One that could kind of, a couple Browns, a couple Asians, and I was kind of speaking on the Black community specifically, though. And I kind of, wanted to make sure that was felt. And I told everyone this is a Black man in America. I'm speaking on you know. So I kind of wanted that to be expressed to the community. So the coolest thing was that, and I wanted to share that.
Man, Kev, I'm getting a round of applause, bro. That's good shit. Especially
Man.
especially in juxtaposition to last week where you had a miss. You were like, fuck, I should have spoke up about this thing. So it's like the fact that you seen your opportunity and you took it, and not only did you take it, you got good feedback for dropping gems. So major props to you, bro. That's for sure.
Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for keeping it real, man. I really appreciate that, man. Like to come in like, yo, this is what it is, like unapologetically saying, I'm going to speak my mind, I'm going to offer my insight, and that is what it is. I really respect that because everyone doesn't take that vantage point. Even on the calls that I was on, man, it was like there was a lot of sugarcoating and trying to be
Salt Bay.
Dramatic.
Little Salt Bay.
And people don't learn that way, right? When you sugarcoat it, they're not gonna learn you, like, and they're not gonna receive it well because it's sugarcoated, right? It's gonna be like, oh, okay, that seems nice.
It's not that bad.
Correct. You gotta just punch them in the face with it, man. Once you get hit, you learn.
or hit them on the head with it, whichever. You know what I mean?
Whichever.
However you want it. This brings me to I'm gonna take a detour, y'all. Let's go to vulnerability. Mm-hmm. Let's go to Kev displaying vulnerability in class enlightens people. But I think often as men, specifically black men, we think of vulnerability as like a kryptonite. Like, talk to me about like the first time you realized that like vulnerability can be used to teach.
Man, the heavy question right there.
Right.
I mean, I think because as Kevin is talking, I'll say all of us. I think I can speak for us. I think we get a claim for being vulnerable in public spaces, but to us, it's probably not vulnerability. It's like sharing my experience, and like I'm sharing this with you, so you know when you see another black person that looks like me, you give them a pardon. You don't just go and flip off the handle. But to other people, that's viewed as like vulnerability. You're displaying such courage. I'm like, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, man. You know what it is? I know what partially what it was for me in being in attempting to be vulnerable, like back in the day versus how open I am to being vulnerable now. I think now I share from a place that my feelings are already valid. Like I'm sharing from a place of validation instead of trying to seek validation from what I'm sharing. So back in the day, I wouldn't be vulnerable because if I said what I said and it wasn't received in a way I thought it should be received, I would feel like a little like insecure about what I just said. But now when I share, it's like, I know what I feel and I know what I know. So if you react by brushing me off, if you react by telling me I'm wrong, I don't care because I wasn't trying to be validated by what I just said. I'm coming from a place of validation. So like to me, like as a man, I've transitioned from seeking approval to already being self-approved. So whatever I say, I just say. You know what I mean?
You pre-approved, huh? You in the mail. You pre-approved. Kev, talk to me more about the decision to speak up this week versus your opportunity last week.
I mean, that was a good question earlier, man. I think that was a valid point you brought up, but I was just having this conversation about playing Juxtaposition because it wasn't personal, you know, like in a way of it wasn't a vulnerable, I would say, position because I was speaking the truth. And I was just having this conversation about, I had that moment actually, I'm going to jump quick because I'm not going to take y'all too far, but I was 12 years old. I was the only black kid in my AAU team for a long time. You know what I'm saying? And then I had a moment, man, where I felt like I shouldn't have to hide who I am. You feel what I'm saying? Like I shouldn't have to like be ashamed of where I come from. You feel what I'm saying? And the moment was for me, the pivotal moment that changed my life was when I decided to wear my do-rag to practice because I wanted it to be accepted in this culture because I do it. You feel what I'm saying? And y'all, I've already kind of built rapport and I've already been trusted, quote unquote, in this space where whatever I do shouldn't be judged by what's going on, should be respected, if anything, because of who I am. You know what I'm saying? So I've always kind of like had that in me, low key. So that was the same kind of feel in class. Like, I'm speaking on my people as someone who's made it because I'm here sitting in the seat with y'all, right? I'm here with y'all because I've already proven I'm supposed to be here, right? So that wasn't just enough for me just to kind of stand up and feel like I deserve that conversation because I'm here with y'all. You feel what I'm saying? Like, I'm in this room, quote unquote, that y'all made it so hard for people to get in, that I figured it out, and I snuck in here too, and now here I am. I almost speak my mind. You know what I mean? I'm not going. I didn't want to like. I didn't want them to feel like I needed their approval at that time because it was just that moment for me to share the realness of how I felt and how we feel, what I've just been listening to, what I've been experiencing. I've been quiet for like almost a month about it, just digesting, and But then I was like, okay, this is how we need to fix this, and now I can come from a position of not just ranting and bringing on anger or feeling, but solutions. Because now you are respecting that problem. Now here's a solution to that problem. Now let's work, right? So I just came from a position of just challenging peers, quote unquote,
And I think that's what you do. Go ahead. No, go ahead, James.
So just kind of when Cleveland, you had mentioned the fact that you seeked approval, in the past, either when you consider that being vulnerable, and maybe you're afraid to be vulnerable. And to answer the question with that, Bar, for me is it was more about kind of seeking approval from being in a PWI university or college. So when I first got to TCNJ, it was not the norm, right? It was predominantly white individuals, and I grew up in a predominantly Black and Hispanic community. So for me, when I got there, I was very uncomfortable, and I also lacked confidence, right? So I think when we seek validation, it's because we lack confidence in who we are or in our abilities in general. So it's kind of hard to be vulnerable in the past because we don't have those experiences. We don't feel like we have the knowledge, even if maybe we do. So we seek for that validation from individuals. But I think now it's a lot easier to be quote unquote vulnerable because, as you said, Bart, we don't look at it that way. We just kind of speak in our minds, and we're passionate about it. When you're passionate about something, you show emotion. It's looked at as being vulnerable, but you do it because it comes from a point of experience. It comes from a point of knowledge, and it comes from a point of being confident. So I think now when we have these conversations with our peers, whether it be at work, whether it be a university in our master's program, whatever the case is, we're confident now, right? We can have these conversations because either we live through experiences or we just know what we know. And that confidence, allows us to be vulnerable. So for me, just attending the PWI, that was, one of the points where I knew I had to understand where I was at and become confident with me so I could allow myself to be vulnerable.
AKA, you can't tell us shit. Once you don't put us through the ringer, once you done put us through some shit, it's
400 years.
Yo, once you get to a space, I can never forget getting into, I can use not my current company, but walking into Facebook. When I walked into Facebook with the employee tag, it's like, y'all niggas fucked up. Like, what you did was you validated my confidence, right? I knew that I could be in a space like this with y'all, right? Y'all know who y'all is, whether it's people who just don't look like us. Now I'm here and I'm competing, and not only am I keeping pace, but I can pass you if I want to exert that kind of effort. What that taught me was, to James's point, you get to a space where you're uncomfortable and you realize that, I can flip this, and then your experience becomes your confidence. And to Kev's point, yo, you so confident in the experiences that you have, it don't even feel like vulnerability, but it is, yo. It's like, it's so important for us to know our. I think vulnerability is one of our powers because I'm not embarrassed that I grew up poor. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. This is something I lived through. This is not something that is me. And same thing with being Black. I'm proud to be Black. I'm proud to be Black on a right. And I'm proud to be Black on a team that's mostly not Black. So now I'm in a position to empower, to teach, and to dismantle whatever you thought about my folks. So that vulnerability piece, yo, I'm trying to tell you, that shit is clutch.
And let me not say this, and I will say I was passionate. I was nervous to say it, You know,
Mm-hmm.
I felt myself coming out of myself, but I felt myself at the beginning like trembling. You know, I just knew I had to do it, and I knew there was like it was like you passionate about playing the game or passionate about doing anything. You're nervous going into it, but you reach another space, and then when it's happening, it's just happening. You know, and whatever's supposed to be said, how our action's supposed to come out, is just being delivered. And I didn't have a reaction to after the moment was when it was just like, wow, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Then when things settled, you know, so like there was some vulnerability, right? Because of the energy and just stripping yourself naked and saying, look, this is what we are, this is what we got. But yeah, I'm going to James' point with passion. Passion's so important because it's always going to make you nervous, no matter what you attempt, no matter what you're attracted to or doing. At the moment you're doing it, it's supposed to make you feel that because you care about that. You care about it working. You care about it being followed through. You care about it.
Yeah.
You care. You know, your voice cracks a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like you go through that, and that's all good stuff too, though. So, you know, I think we're at a good space, man. We're at a good space, and
What you want to say,
I'll
Cleveland?
challenge you, Bart. You tell us.
Which part?
Tell us about you know, where you felt like in terms of the vulnerability. You know, how'd you hype this?
I can get into it. I think I think it starts with I can go back to like 2010 and Cleveland know where I'm going. And Sherwin Williams, Cleveland was working, and he and I had a similar situation that we were dealing with that was incredibly embarrassing. It didn't speak to our character. It didn't speak to who we were as people. And you kind of have to wear this badge of like dishonor that like you didn't really. I didn't earn this shit. This shit was just right. It was just put on me. Mm-hmm. So when you have to consistently wear this badge of embarrassment, or you're dealing with some shit that just is not you, it makes you feel like, fuck, man, like I don't have nothing to lose. Like if I'm talking to people and have to disclose this information about me, let me not say it. It wasn't an STD, y'all. Just so y'all know, it wasn't. I wasn't walking around with negative results, with bad results. It was. To put it plainly, I was dealing with an issue with the law that had nothing to do with me in full disclosure. So to Kev's point, when I had to wear something that wasn't mine, it didn't fit me, it's like I don't got nothing to lose. Y'all already assuming something about me anyway. So going from interview to interview, having to justify like this experience that like this is some bullshit. I kind of broke this shell, and to the point where like anything that's happened to me, I can speak anything that's happened to me that I've come through. I don't know how I feel about it in the moment, but if I've come through it, if I experienced it before, I can speak to it with pretty much a lot of confidence. And that goes for traumatic events. That goes for things that are happening now in terms of like, this ain't our first rodeo experiencing a black man die. So on camera. So when I'm talking to my coworkers, this gonna sound funny, but like they're in the smoke. They're in the mix. They're in the weeds with it. I'm like a little above it. I'm on the other side waiting for them like with the next steps. Like, okay, whenever y'all done, I got the next steps for y'all because I've been here before and it won't be the last time. So I think I gained the confidence to speak vulnerably when I was dealing with some shit that people put on me. And it was like, I guess I got nothing to lose except for speaking my piece.
Yeah, man, and like the honesty factor and the passion factor is so important because if we really want to see change, we have to be honest and we have to be open. It's like what we were talking about a couple episodes ago. We were talking about our significant others, and it's like if we're not being open and honest, then nothing's going to change and nothing is going to get better. And that's where we are right now as a community. If we're going to talk about racism, we're talking about racism, and it's going to be flat out, no holds barred. No chaser. Like this is what it is. You can't talk about an ugly situation and try to dress it up and make it seem like it ain't that bad because it is that bad. And we're confident to know that like if you don't accept what I'm saying, that's fine. I have qualities where I know I can land somewhere else and be valuable anywhere where I land. So if you don't like what I'm saying and you want to hold it against me, at least I leave knowing that you know the truth and you know exactly how I feel about it, man.
Facts.
It's cool. And then, you know what? You mentioned something that really just triggered something for me, which is we have the blessing and the gift of kind of changing the face of what most would call like traumatic events. Like
Mm.
I heard this this approach to PTSD saying that it's not always post-traumatic stress. Sometimes it's potentially traumatic situation syndrome, where you encounter something and how you react after it happens determines whether it's a traumatic event for you or not, and whether you have actual PTSD. So we've been able to be resilient and bounce back in a way where most others haven't. So our honesty comes from a place where, look, I've been in the gutter. I've had to check a box I did not want to check on an application because I didn't know how my legal situation was going to end. And I'm in a good space right now. So like at this point, you can't tell me much about what I can or can't do. So being vulnerable doesn't feel like I'm being vulnerable.
Facts. Go ahead, James. You was going to say
No, I
something?
was saying that's why it's important in terms of like where, you know, whoever's listening to this, people of color, we have to make sure that, you know, we're vulnerable and we're not afraid to speak up in situations where we know we see someone doing something that's, you know, not appropriate, or saying things that they shouldn't say, or if you have friends that, you know, say inappropriate things, or you're in a space, whether it's work or school or wherever you're at, you need to be, you know, have the courage and be vulnerable and speak up, because that's the only way people are going to learn, right? If we're not speaking up, even people of color, right? Black people, if we're not speaking up in those situations, we're almost part of the problem as well, right? Because we're not educating those people that surround us. It is very important to educate, very important, because a lot of people truly don't know. They really don't know what they don't know, and you can't do better until you know, right? So, you know, when you know more, you can do more, right? And I think it's important for us in our spaces to have those conversations with people, whether it's uncomfortable or not, and be honest, open, and have the courage to speak your mind.
And I will say, from a diversity and inclusion perspective, I'm with you, James, because I have the capacity to teach. But from a diversity and inclusion perspective, it is not our job as Black people to teach other people about Black people. Y'all niggas got Google. Y'all niggas got everything to your disposal. Y'all can learn. But for folks like us who do have the capacity to educate and enlighten, then I feel like we need to step up and make sure that people are educated and not falling for the tricks, you know.
I feel you, but I mean, while I know it's not our responsibility, we need to do it, man.
I'm with you.
It won't. I'm telling you, they won't. They'll be willfully ignorant, or maybe they'll look up something and, you know, based on their search history or whatever the case is, Google brings up certain articles that's, you know, not necessarily the truth. Whatever the case is, if we have the space, or whoever it is, if you have the space and the opportunity, have that conversation.
That's a fact.
Absolutely, man. Because silence, in my experience, silence has been silence conveys a message, right? Like whether when you don't speak up at the time where it's time to speak up, you're conveying a message that I may not agree with what you're doing, but I condone what you're doing. Like, I don't like what you're doing, but I'm okay with you doing it around me. Literally, we saw 8 minutes and 46 seconds of that, where 3 other officers said, maybe I'm not okay with what you're doing, but I'm not going to say
stop it.
Okay what you're doing around me. And I think that's why it's so important to speak up, man, because silence sometimes speaks louder than words, man. Like, silence says, I'm okay with it. And really, that's why it's important for white folks right now to speak up. Like, you hear somebody say something off color, say something, make them uncomfortable. Like, I'm not cool with what you just said. I bet you they won't do it again at the very
You know what? Speaking of that, I don't like when people just all of a sudden consider themselves allies. No, motherfucker, you just started your research yesterday. That does not make you an ally.
Word up.
No, you are not.
I appreciate the effort. I really do.
You are not a scroller. You are a potential. You are a camper.
I'm about to say a camper, not even a potential.
Yeah, you are in your white tea stage. And for layman's, what that means is that you can't go to Costco without a Costco card, can you? Mm-mm. No. You be outside in the line, like, what's going on? No, sign up, do the work, right, and then you can shop here, because otherwise you can't just all of a sudden like, I'm an ally. No,
and people think they're allies when they're silent. You know, a lot of white people, they'll say, like, I'm not racist, or, you know, I think that Black Lives Matter, whatever the case is. But when they see stuff, or when they see their friends or their family members or whatever the case is doing racist things or saying racist things, and they say nothing, you're part of the problem, right? And if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. If you're part of the problem, you are definitely not an ally, right? So staying silent means nothing. It does not mean, I don't care if you're not racist or whatever the case is. If you're silent in these situations and you're not educating, then you're not part of the team.
I think they're a bigger part of the problem than the ones that are vocal. Like the one that'll call you a nigga to your face is not the one to worry about. I'm sorry, but it's not. It's right. The ones that smiling in your face and go home with the I'm not a racist because I like Cleveland. He's like awesome guy. You see how nice he dresses?
My black friend.
Like those are the ones.
You see my African American?
My African American friend. He's right. My African American. Nah, man. Like the ones that are screaming in my face and say crazy stuff, I've never been worried about because I know what they think. It's the other.
There's I wish I had the graphic. There's a continuum. Everything's a spectrum. If you want to get down to it, everything's a spectrum, right? There's a spectrum of like racism. And when people say I'm not racist, typically they fall on that spectrum. If you condone certain if I watch a gay dude or a gay woman get fucked up on the street, am I homophobic? No, but I'm not a friend to the movement. If I'm just going to let that person get beat up. If you see somebody knowingly excluding black people, are you a racist? No, but are you aligning yourself to white supremacy? Yes. Are you anti-black? Yes. Are you anti-racist? No. You are contributing to the societal issues that we're trying to fight. So there is a continuum of like what's racist and you don't got to call me a nigga to be racist.
I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
Because it's one thing that has been coming up lately is people say I don't talk because I don't know what to say, and I don't.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
I have a very strong opinion on that, but I want to hear what y'all have to say first. Like, what do you say to the white folks who are saying like, I want to say something?
I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Sometimes, take an example. You just don't know how you feel at the moment, and you haven't prepared a thought. I think so for a lot of people, this might be a first time being encountered to this degree. And, they might have indirectly participated in some things, but never really had a real heart-to-heart conversation. It's like we think about some of the white people in this world who've never encountered a black person. That's not far-fetched, because society creates that opportunity for that to happen, essentially. So they may have just liked you as a person, but they don't want to say innately what they feel as who they are because they're conditioned to, right, at the end of the day. Yeah. So they may slip up and say some things that could offend you, you know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of like, let me just keep my trap tight until whenever. But I'd rather the silence in real time and say something smart than say something and have to apologize because you weren't. I didn't know how I felt. So
I'm on the.
Is that all the way a bad thing?
I'm on the fuck that side. I think that if you are encountering, let me take you to my brain for a second. If you are in a space to say that you don't want to say the wrong thing, it probably means a black person's present, right? We can agree to that. Like they're not going to say, I don't want to say the wrong thing at a bunch of people that look like them. But to Kev's point, like, I think on the surface that should make sense, but because like deconstructing it, you saying that you don't know what to say is being complacent. It's like, I'm okay with not knowing what's wrong because the best way for us to learn, y'all funny. The best way for y'all to learn is to make mistakes. All of us. We don't get where we need to be if we don't make mistakes. Like, how do I know?
1,000%.
How do I know what I'm saying is correct, or how can I help somebody else if I don't even know if I'm using the right terminology? Let me correct you. Let it happen here versus you do that shit in the street and then say the wrong thing at you punch in the face.
Yeah, well, so for me, I feel like as adults, we know right from wrong, right? So if you are in a position, you say like, oh, I just don't know what to say. I mean, then you know what you're saying is either racist or not, or is unacceptable or not, right? So, and if you have to think about, I don't know what to say, I might say the wrong thing, that's just because that's the way you think, right? You kind of think before you say certain words, and if you feel like you don't know what to say, then in my mind, I mean, it doesn't mean that you're racist, but you probably have some thoughts, and when you're in those private conversations, you might be saying things often, and that's probably what comes to your mind first. So if you're like, oh, I just don't know what to say, I mean, I find that a little ignorant, and I just think that as adults, we know right from wrong. So whatever you're saying, if it's right or if it's something you shouldn't be saying.
That's fair. Can I ask you a question? Can I like play devil's advocate a little bit?
Can I? No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Kev.
If okay, so you talking to a girl, you've been y'all dating for years, and then she go through your jack and see some things, right? And then sets you up, traps you over time, like ask you questions.
I don't like this.
And like and she goes, you got
yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we got you.
All right. So she hits you with the, oh, where were you Saturday? And you was with so and so, but then you hit her with the movies with Cleveland. I was chilling. She let you slide. She already know. All right, cool. I'm gonna see how long this goes. Okay. So then now it gets to a point where she just approaches you, and it's like you get caught smack red-handed, and she goes, "So tell me, what was that about?" And she asks you pretty much to be vulnerable to the exposure of your guilt. Now you what can you say, right? You're in a situation where like, tell me, how do you think is right or wrong? Like, of course, that's wrong. You in your heart telling you was wrong, right? Because you lied 1,000. You think about all the times you told her you was with Bobby and Sue, and you chilling there doing what you was doing with who you was doing with, and you feel like, damn, I feel guilty for that. I mean, and you don't know, you just out of words essentially, right? It's almost like the guilt kind of makes you speechless. Like they think about the history, their ancestors, their grandfathers, they think about the shit that they're really seeing now. Like it's like, damn. I just don't know. I may just say the wrong, because at the end of the day, my loyalty is to my grandfather. My loyalty is to my father, to their fathers, to my heritage, to my lineage. That's my. You see me, you know what I mean? I can only but feel you, but so much. I could. The only thing I can say is my bad, but that's not going to be justified enough. You know what I mean? That may turn into a thing. You know what I mean? It's super sticky. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'd rather you feel that. I'd rather you just come up with a solution and you say, the best thing I think people can do now is just apologize for the experience. And I think Var hit it on the head with belonging, like incorporate that in corporate America. You feel what I'm saying? Because you have to cultivate an environment where we feel at home, and that's really it at this point. I mean, it's really creating this land that we all sit on and making this land feel like we belong to in every aspect of what we go through in life, all the systems.
I think the best apology is changed behavior. So James, when she goes through your phone,
well,
fucked up. Yes,
I agree. Right. So that's what I mean. That to answer that, to me, is like the reason why I feel like
she left.
It can't be a situation where they're like, I don't know what to say, because it's easy to say Black Lives Matter. It's easy to say racism is terrible. It's easy to say that, there's systemic oppression, 400 years. Like, those are easy things to say. Those are not hard things to say for anyone, whatever race you are. And if you don't know that racism sucks and is a terrible thing, and you can't say that, then that speaks volumes to you, in my opinion.
I agree. So here's the way I see it. I think people who say that, they're using it as a crutch because there's a very simple solution to it. The analogy I use at work is this: there's a fire, right? One person gets on their knees when they see a fire and starts to blow on the fire. It's probably not the best way to do it, but they're trying to help to put the fire out. Another person starts to stomp on it, probably more efficient, but still not the best way. Another person runs to go get a fire extinguisher. Yeah, it's going to work, but it's going to take a minute for you to come back. I grab a fire hose and just start spraying. That's the best way to do it. Someone else is standing off on the side and saying, well, that fire doesn't really affect me and I don't want to get burnt. and I don't want to mess them up with what they're doing, so I'm just going to stand over here. To me, that's the excuse of the white person that says, I don't know what to say. So instead of getting close enough to the fire to do something, to help me hold the fire hose, to go spray it with the fire extinguisher, to get on your knees and blow on the fire, do whatever, you're deciding to stand on the sidelines because the fire doesn't impact you. When all we want is for somebody to be fighting the fire with us. To me, racism is a fire, right? All we want you to say is that fire is bad and it's burning people. That's legit all we want. It's not that deep. Say racism is bad. If somebody does something racist in front of you, I'm not saying condemn them for it, but convict them for it. Yo, that was foul. I don't accept that around you. What we're saying is when the fire is happening, get on our side and help put this fire out in whatever way that you can. Even if you don't know the perfect way, even if you're on your knees blowing on the fire, we know it's not the best way to do it, but at least you're doing something. We know you're with us. So like, I feel like that excuse is just not a valid excuse right now. Say you don't like racism. Call it out when you see it. It's that simple. That's my opinion.
I agree.
I just would just follow up with. Go ahead, Var. I just wanted to follow up.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up. I don't think you guys are. I think you guys make valid points. I'm coming from a perspective of playing the opposite. Where I come from, and the opposite is because I have the you guys, y'all know me. So anyway, my thing is they've been conditioned. This is how they think, right? You're asking somebody, at the end of the day, it's wrong. But this is how I'm able to go to college without paying for it. Because over time, my parents were able to, you gotta look at how the system is set up, right? So I benefit from this, my guy. Like, this is how I eat. This is how I eat in real time, right? So you want me to feel bad. You want me to take the food out of my mouth to put it in your mouth. It's hard for, and I'm not saying like I use that example because in 400 years ago, you think about the Bill Gates of the world. The reason why they're the Bill Gates of the world is because their family figured out an opportunity that probably involved us doing a lot of the work, right? And they had, and the expenses was super low, and it was able to profit tremendously. And this is why they're who they are. It's not just a miraculous. It's not just an accident. You know what I'm saying? These people are strategically placed into the world the way they are.
Right.
Okay, so now you want this person to feel bad.
You know what?
That's 400 years on doing.
I don't know if it's a feel bad. I know where you're going, Kev. I'm on a wavelength. I'm like, you're thinking by admitting, then that means that now they got to share. Now they got to break me off. Now we're. So I think it's an acknowledgement first. Like, racism will not be dismantled between today and tomorrow. They know that, we know that. But to Cleveland's analogy, getting close to the fire is doing something, watching something, because protests all happen in different ways. Even if you are not comfortable speaking, you can still do something. And even if so you can be in a meeting like, look, I honestly don't have the words, but what I have been doing is telling my family to watch this documentary, to educate themselves on this, to do that.
Inform yourself.
Yes, to educate. And that's where James came in. That's where Cleveland came in. Even you, KV, where you are sharing resources with these folks so they can't say, I don't know what to do. Yes, you do. I just told you. So tangible things. You can go to the crib, watch Netflix, do what you got to do, educate yourself, immerse yourself in what's going on, and then be, each one teach one type vibe. All right, fellas, now we're transitioning back to what I like to call quarantine findings. So, if I'm being honest, I feel like all the brothers on the call now, you've been collecting some data over the last 3 months. There's been some information that you've compiled, and I wanted to know with the hypothesis of your relationship in this quarantine. I want to know what have you learned this quarantine with your significant other that you didn't know before, and that could be an appreciation or that could be a fuck, one or the other. Like what have you all learned that you were like enlightened by being around your significant other 24/7 and for like the last 3 months? Oh, buddy, it's crickets.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to get in the way, but You can go in different order.
I think one of the things obviously is like when you have married, whatever the case is, when you live with your significant other and you're in quarantine, you're probably dealing with a much higher level of stress, right? And you're dealing with it with each other for literally all day. So, when usually you have stress from work, you have that at work, and then sometimes you can compartmentalize that, leave it at work, if you will, and come home to your significant other, or maybe even just vent to your significant other about that to kind of get it off your chest. During quarantine, that work stress may come with your significant other making a noise during a conference call, and then taking that stress and flipping on your significant other. So that's something that I notice is that you got to be able to balance that stress level, because it's definitely heightened at this point in time. By kind of just making sure that if you have the space, separated some way somehow throughout the day. So you almost get that mentality of like you miss your significant other. So that when you come back together, you can kind of embrace it and kind of talk about your day. But that elevated level of stress is definitely something, be able to deal with it.
That was great, James. That was a great way to open.
Was.
Because you gave us, he gave it to us, and he also gave us some gems. So now I got to follow suit with some gems. I don't even know if I have any. I think the things that I've learned is that this quarantine can age your relationship rather quickly. Now, for me, we're about a year and some change in. We're not married, but living together. And to James's point, we do operate from the mechanism of like, if she has a meeting where she doesn't need any interruptions, then like she can have the desk and like set up here. But otherwise, she's on the dining room table getting it in, and I kind of be here because I'm always talking in the meetings. I don't have the option to like be ghost. So at lunchtime, I go check her out. Maybe at like 3:00 if I'm still working or I'm done, I go check her out. But like we have that separation, and for us to be here pretty early in our relationship, and we haven't had not one argument over quarantine. Like, now I know I've been in enough situations to know like what the honeymoon period is and what's not. Like this isn't a honeymoon period because we've had disagreements. There have been moments where we don't see eye to eye, and then I noticed myself maybe like a half hour later being like, "Come here," and that's different for me. I can hold a grudge, my mans. You tell sometimes
that Irish sea months that got you saying come here.
pre and post. That's I will say
it's because you remember that you gonna have to be on the couch. If things get to where they get to.
We don't want none of that. We don't want none of that. But I can say that like I guess what I've learned is like to James's point, given the space, not trying, you're not going nowhere. Don't try to smother, don't try to do too much in a small amount of time. I think the space for work has definitely been beneficial because we can kind of share. But I've been pleasantly surprised at the fact that we haven't had any arguments at all in this whole 3 months.
I got a balanced story, I think.
Give it to us.
So one of the things I realized about my wife that, I'll be honest, aggravated me at first is I had a reminder that Amazon Prime doesn't mean Amazon free, right? Like, packages that come every day. But you know what I realized though is like
fucking boxes,
like low key, like a visionary. And I say it this way because some of the stuff she like wants to order, I'll be like, nah, we don't need that. Like that's my first reaction. We don't need that. But she got some stuff. Like I guess I've lived on my own for so long that now that I'm married, I realize how important it is for like to be with someone who knows how to make a house a home. Like my house now feels like a home. My apartment now feels like a home. So the things that she orders, I'm using them. Like got my skin popping, the little face joints that she ordering, and the
the ones that move, like the joints that.
Bruh,
I
she
need
got
one of
a
them.
face steamer, right? When she showed it to me before she ordered, I was like, we do not need a face steamer. She got that joint. Use it, bro. I use that thing like
Hey yo, send me the link.
Soften that
I
beard
will
up.
send you the link. Got my beard feeling like I got the conditioner in my beard. You know what I'm saying?
You got some Kev Care?
Good. Not Kev Care. But yo, I just realized that, like, yo, it's really important to have somebody to balance you out. And to what you mentioned, Var, like my wife and I are the same way. We disagree, but we don't argue a lot.
Mhm.
Like I since I've been with her, I can think of like maybe one or two arguments, period. But like we disagree frequently. And that's so important, man. So I think I've been learning to balance like letting her be her. And usually that's been working out for me in the long run. So I'm enjoying it.
Man,
Hey.
I think that arguments are unresolved miscommunications. And a lot of times we arguing not even about what we really trying to argue about. We arguing about because
That
you
shit
said it in a way
yesterday.
I ain't like.
Yeah.
Or
Hold
you
on.
said it
Can we-
for something that's come from somewhere else.
Can we stop right there? I want you to finish your point, Kev, but I feel like I'm fucking crazy when it's not said the way that I want it to be said. It's like, but I've been having to check myself like, nigga, shut up.
Yeah.
Put
You
some
know what she
respect on
mean.
my name.
You know what she
You
mean.
know what she meant.
But go ahead,
Because I
Kev.
taught, because I go, God, you know, I just say quarantine fine for us outside of that. But women and men are just two different creatures with this with the same God, with the same values.
Yeah.
With mental strength is different because they're super consciously like different, like they're on a whole different level on terms of like what they feel and know.
Mhm.
But you know, you hear conversations today time about, you know, just we want to non-gender, and I support the diversity in that, but man and women are two different in the same household. That is what I've been able to find, right? And I think it's important. One of the things I learned that I still wonder myself, we're still in that honeymoon phase.
Here we go.
And
This is what I'm talking about. He's getting to it now, fellas.
I think I think part of me want to say I'm not, but time has made us feel like we were already prepared for this. But we don't argue, and we do express ourselves. We do admit to what we like, we don't like, and that creates tension all the time. We got to realize what's more important. You know, is you getting what you have to get out important, or because ultimately we got to put these perspectives in the same bowl and melt them together and come to a blend where we both can find love in it. And so that's just been the most interesting thing finding is just that there's always a way, no matter what the disagreement is, there's always a way to come to a place, if you really value the person that you're with, to a place where you both can live with that, right?
Yeah.
And it takes time, obviously, but you realize this world is not even, we're not, you know, I don't want to get super, what's that term? I don't even remember right now, but it's super spiritual for right now. But we're only here for a short period of time, right? And realistically, with that being said, like the person you're with is just a moment of creating things that don't really last forever anyway. So, all right, this makes her feel the way it feels. You should sacrifice the time for the little bit of time. But we don't think that way. We think
you just hit us with some Kev Electronica bars just now. I don't even know if you let the beat breathe a little bit, because when he said we don't argue, we express ourselves, I was still trying to catch up to the bar he said before that, and then he was saying that like we're just two things in a bowl, just trying to mix it to make love. It's like, oh, I'm in the bowl. I'm in the bowl. I felt like I was in the bowl and shit.
That's real.
But so for me, like me and my wife, like we've been living with each other, or we've been living together since 2012.
Since 98.
So basically that's what it feels like. Nah, but we've been living with each other for, you know, some time, for years. I mean, what's that, like 8 years now? Damn, we really do know our like pinpoints that kind of would make one person annoyed. You know, you do this, do that. So because we got a lot of time in this life of
A lot
living
of
with
skin in
your
the game.
significant other, it hasn't been really an issue for us, but probably more so is because we were frontline, well, not frontline workers, but essential workers, frontline workers, everyone in the hospital and stuff like that. We wasn't on the front lines.
I just want everybody
So
to be rich, by the way. Don't let that
no.
that nigga is rich.
Essential workers, living a very modest life. But because of that, we it wasn't really too much different. It was just more so just trying to make sure that we were safe. But a lot of things from work kind of trickled back into the household because of the type of jobs that we did have and the things that we had to deal with. But it was just more about dealing with those stress levels that I talked about earlier, right? Being 8 years in here, you can almost purposely push somebody's button just because you want to have a good day, right?
Thought that way.
Button, right?
My Netflix not working. Let me push this button.
I know people want to jump in. I just want to jump in real quick and say the interesting thing about that is, yes, you do have that power. You do have that knowingly where you can go in and activate certain responses, right? But what's interesting is that I think the bigger picture is just knowing how to. What I want to express is there's a way to de-escalate a scenario, something from happening before it gets to a place where.
Oh yeah, you see it. You see it. You see the play. You see the screen being set, and then it's like he about to come off the screen and shoot a three. I can see it. Let me get in front of that screen so he can't shoot.
Yeah, and sometimes we have a better way to see that, and I think a cue. I'm gonna give men a gem, right? Real quick one. Like
gym time.
Women are naturally more expressive, and a lot of times they're not looking for you to solve anything. They're just expressing themselves, and we get caught into that because now it's like, I gotta solve this issue. Ooh. And now you make her issue your problem, and you're now upset with her because she can't help you solve an issue that you just created for yourself.
Talk about it.
You kind of have to understand where things are positioned at, and you have to understand when you're needed and when you're not needed. Sometimes you could just say simply, "Hey, do you need me right now?" Or you just express yourself, and then you can just nip it because it's going to become a thing for you, right? If you don't feed into it, but you don't want to sit there and act like you're not into anything. So you're like hopscotching. You're like, okay,
no, yeah, you're like double Dutch. That's Cleveland. We're gonna get to you in 2 seconds, but I had to double click on what Kevin just said. That is the truest shit. I have fallen into that trap multiple times for years and years.
Oh man, it's a bear trap. It's not even a mouse trap. It's a bear.
What you do? Why you tell me? I'm not supposed. I'm a helper. What you mean? This is what I do. I solve problems. I like puzzles. How dare you tell me something I can't solve it? Meanwhile, she's want to vent. That venting versus solution shit is like, when you get that, it's like, it's like, hold on.
Yeah, the world changes.
Listen, you told me to listen.
The world changes.
Okay.
So
and when you say listen, you just mean me sit here, okay? And when you say sit here, I don't do shit. Got it.
Yes, and that makes you feel weird at first, but then you get comfortable. Then you're like, okay, cool. You straight? You all right? Just make sure you breathe it.
Then it turns into. I know, Carolyn getting my nerves too. Damn, she did that again.
Man.
Wow.
But yeah,
always got to be on their side too.
And,
my fault, yo. Real quick. So another thing. So my wife anyway. When they come home and give you tell you a story, you can't never side with anybody else.
Don't play devil's advocate.
No matter what, and this is something I'm so like I'm serious. It's like, oh yeah, no matter what it is, you can't side with the other person. You can't be rational and like, well, maybe they thought this. No, like, damn, yeah, that was messed up.
We know. Meanwhile, I'll be like, I know you. You do that, and that is annoying. Mm-hmm. So Carolyn is right. That shit would piss me off too.
Yeah, it's the thing is about that is they're not looking for logic, James. You're not looking for that. They're not looking for, political correct. Like they want a cheerleader at that time. Okay, they want to turn up, feed my battery, tell me what I need to hear so I can feel. And then if you get by that, you get, you know, my thing is that when you get by that, once you get by that, let that energy spill out. There's a moment where you got to be logical. There's a moment where you can say, okay, now what could you have done differently?
That's a sweet science.
Which would you
can't. James like no.
The reason why I say that
because it's not about me. It's not about us. The reason why, for me, it's not about us, right? So our issues, those are conversations that we have. But when it's her and someone else, has nothing to do with us.
Oh, it's just a thing. Yeah, I got you.
Right.
Because she needs a battery. She needs that battery.
I legit was like, you know what? My fault. From now on, I agree with you.
I'm turning up with you
on your side, no matter what. Like legit, I swear, I said that. I was like, my fault. No need for us to get an argument about something that got nothing to do with me.
Yo,
exactly.
What were you gonna say?
Just turn up.
One of the best Bible verses ever says to be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. Man, if you just, the first thing I want to do is listen to what you have to say, and I may not, to Kev's point, I might not have to say anything. I might just be able to sit here and chill, let you get out what you need to get out, and then I'll say something if I absolutely have to. I'm learning that, to be honest, like, because I'm the same way, Var. I'm like, yo, if you bring something to me, that must mean there's a problem that I'm
supposed to fix it.
Problem solver. Like, so let's get to the meat of what's wrong so that I can try to solve this. But nah, man.
What did Carolyn do to you?
Yo, hold on. Who is this Carolyn character?
I don't know. Linda? Like, were you in traffic this morning? Did you have your granola bar? Because you were a little aggy this morning. So maybe Carolyn has a point. But like, no.
What's funny about Carolyn is if you ask who Carolyn was mid-conversation, you don't remember 3 weeks ago. I told you. Yeah. Carolyn came to the oven 3 weeks ago. I'm trying to remember what I had for breakfast. Took some 3 weeks.
Yeah, the one that sat in my seat. The one that sat in my seat.
Yeah, that Carolyn.
Yeah. Now I remember. Yeah, it's coming back.
Yeah, okay, this is the reason why I say that, right? For me, it's like the reason why I bring that up in terms of challenge, even after I super side with you, I just had a weird experience most recently. And I was in a position where I had to side because the relationship, although I super hated the situation, I just had to sit there for 35 minutes while this person just expressed the wrongness of the situation while I knew in my heart why it happened and who's at fault, but I had to just sit there. And it's an interesting place to be. So I had to leave that conversation with, think about some ways it could have gone differently, with the experience happening, what are some ways you could have challenged yourself to do something differently to prevent this from happening, right? And then, because I had to tell this person because they're at this place where they're just thinking emotionally, and everything that they want to do is from an emotional space, not from I'm back to reality. I had a chance to think about it space. So now it's like, yo, when you put yourself in an accountable position, you can now have a strategic plan. You can now see where you went wrong and protect. And then in reality, if you're going to go in on defense, you can now protect your vulnerability up places because you've seen where you are. You digesting the whole thing, not from your emotion perspective, but from the other person's. When you do that, then it's like you can come up with a better plan. So she wasn't a male, right? So so to say that means that there's just a different way that person wanted to address that issue, but it wasn't a place to do that because it was coming from a whole different perspective. So that's the reason why I say, like, I can't just, even when it burns my soul, to be like, yo, and I had to learn before I got to that point, I learned just to keep quiet and listen. And I just had to test myself and do it. And that was my moment to do that. And I'm happy that I didn't say the wrong thing, because you could easily become the victim, or you could become the enemy just by
you're the target.
Making a rational statement or logical statement. Now you become the opposition, right? So definitely gotta be careful. But I always recommend challenging ways because there's always opportunities to do better and get better. There's always opportunities to, even for both men and women, there's always opportunities to grow from any scenario, situation that was escalated to a point where it could have been prevented, right? There's always ways to kind of look back at it and reflect on it. That's just a reflection mechanism I would just suggest, basically.
Well, I'll take the conversation in a different direction. Still on under the theme of quarantine. Kev, you're excluded from this because I've seen what you did. Uh, have y'all found ways in time to be romantic during quarantine?
You mean like just getting the buns?
No, I want the run. I want the give me the red carpet. Give me like because it's tough. I can start by saying I have not.
I was just gonna say romantic.
I've been buying food.
Oh, that's cute.
I actually
You got it, babe. I got it.
It's on me.
That fool says it's on me.
It's on me.
Now, I actually found a way, but that's due to my car. Like, so a lady's car is the Infinity with the like the TV screens and the headrest.
Mm-hmm.
So we like went to I think it was ShopRite or Walmart. Wherever they still lurking Redbox at or because so we went to and grabbed one of those. We had some liquor and I had some like chocolate covered strawberries and we just pulled up in the parking lot like around the corner, put in the movie and just like sat in the back seat and just watched the shit.
Like balance the berries.
That's hella romantic, G. I gotta steal that.
I had to open the sunroof, you know what I mean? Open the sunroof because
stars showing.
Yo, I was getting real antsy, so I was like, yo, we gotta do something, like, cause obviously your initial was just like, oh, let me just bust it down real quick.
It's a family show. It's a family
man.
That's why I try not to use too many vulgar.
Fuck that. Go ahead, go in.
We did one of those. Our romantic situation was, because we all about trying to buy black now too, or at least minority owned or something. So in the house, like what was like last Friday, we just went and bought a bottle of Uncle Nearest bourbon, and I know this is not necessarily black owned, but it's pushed by Diddy. So he was like, if we're gonna buy vodka, we're just gonna buy Ciroc. I couldn't think of anything else that was like legit black owned.
Did Diddy sponsor a headache for you too?
But he owned part of it. Like he's gonna get a little piece of it. So we got that, and we just in here just got tunes of the little romantic songs on the TV through Apple Play, and then just drinking and having fun. That was our romantic night.
You know what? I take it back. I have been romantic. Thanks, James. You gave me the alley-oop. Every night that we have dinner, we do have a candle, and we are playing R&B music.
What? What are you talking about? That was every night. You was
right. That's some like what?
It was.
Who eats
Who eats at the table every night?
Right. First, that's what
we do. We do. We do that. We do that.
Yeah, I have a whole dining room, and I don't eat at the table.
Okay. What I will say, it's the Cleveland's point about when a woman is in the house, she makes the house a home. Most of y'all been to my house out here in California last year. My couch was trash, and I didn't have a dining room table. First rules of order when she moved in, I had to buy a new fucking couch, and we had to buy a dining room table. So, by way of us having those things, it's like, well, we should probably eat on it. So we've had it for like 2 months, and we've been eating at least 5 times a week. We eating at the table.
Yo, bro, I've been in this house 4 years. I can count on one hand how many times we had at that goddamn table. We got a whole dining room, literally, by itself, and nah.
Remember, viewers, remember what I told y'all that he was rich. He let it slip again. He let it slip again. He has rooms in his house that he has not visited.
Not at all.
He hasn't seen yet. I haven't been in this room.
I wish.
That's when you start reading. That's when you start.
But nah, boy, you can't like be like, I didn't do anything romantic. I guess it becomes a norm for you, but that's definitely not the norm.
When you shoot with your right hand, is it special? You know.
Here you go.
Actually, when you shoot your left hand, it's actually
right.
More special.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I ain't switching him over. I've been shooting my right. I've been using my strengths.
This is what I do.
Okay, I can respect that. I can respect that. I mean, I'm a like Cleveland go. Because I know Cleveland got something going to say.
Cleveland, like, why you put me on the spot?
Cleveland, like, God damn. He should have said, looked at his wife.
I don't follow that. Because VAR, first of all, VAR tucked his away like it was nothing and then just dropped it. Like, I was just impressed at the kitchen table. Like, dang.
Right? Then he added the candle and music.
Forget the candle and the R&B music. Like,
man,
the table, that's a dub.
I'm doing that tomorrow.
James hit me with the alley-oop. He said that he'd been listening to music while they drinking Uncle Nearest. I'm like, damn, we do be listening to music while we have dinner.
I'm gonna tell you why the segment's fire.
I'll be honest, yo. I gotta step it up, man. I think I've been like super attentive. Like, so like when she works at a hospital, so she has to go, clearly she has to go to work. And you know, making lunches, making dinners, because she works like a late shift. I'm doing all of that. So like
good stuff.
That's not romantic though. Like it's attentive and it's thoughtful and caring, but it's not romantic, man. I'm gonna have a story next time.
Yeah. I feel like I mean, I wish if it was warm, you could have took her jacket off when she came into the door and shit. But she ain't got no jacket because it's hot outside.
It's hot.
I'm gonna just give you one little cherry. Throw a little note there.
Gym time.
No, throw a little note. Just throw a little note. Yeah, you can say anything.
You heard that, Cleveland?
What's that? Throw a note into the lunchbox.
Yeah.
Yo, I have to be. I'm not even gonna lie, yo. I gotta get back on my square. Pre-wedding, I was the man, dog. When she was working at her last job, I made this jar, and it had little sayings in it, and I gave it to her, and I said, each day I want you to pull one out. I was like that guy. I was
you
had Kyrie handle. You had Kyrie handle.
Hey, yo.
That's a problem. He came out doing the under the knee 360 joint. He came up the rip like.
Did you hear how confident he was? He said, "I told her every day pull one out. Every day pull one out.
That little thing in that joint.
Every day."
I'm gonna say I know I was excluded, but I'm gonna say that one of the other things I had opportunity to do was a picnic, which is at the park. And
I will say, invest in a picnic basket, y'all. Invest in a picnic basket, son.
I have one, never used it.
Even more important than the picnic basket, invest into those foldable chairs, because your ass gonna be grassy itchy. Grass.
Oh yeah, I definitely got the little chairs.
Yeah.
Is it the chairs that sit low to the ground, or is it the actual chairs? Because the whole thing about the picnic is the romantic sitting on the blanket.
Take your picture and get your ass.
I'm gonna get to that.
Post it on the gram and get it up.
Preferably, you want the low risers, because those low risers make you feel closer to the ground. But the chairs is kind of help supplement, make choosing the option. You can stay a little longer if you don't mind hanging out there all day, because you can lay down, you can sit on a chair, you can lay down, you get the options. So
clutch.
We are the Harlem.
Yeah, the chairs is clutch.
I go hiking.
Yo, James.
Well, not
James,
often.
James, I ain't been on a picnic since that.
We lost you.
God damn it,
Alonzo. Damn. It's like there's that picture, right? That picture right there. Just
No, my bad.
Oh,
what happened? You say you're gonna pick it since when?
Since we went on that double date in Mercer County Park. Remember? And we did the little paddleboard.
Oh, yeah. When the dude flipped over underwater.
Yeah. I thought he was about to drown. That was the last time I actually sat for a picnic.
What's up, beautiful?
What's up, Ava?